Okay, welcome to the balance sheet. Here's my long-awaited follow-up to the case with Andrew Henderson. This video I made before about Andrew Henderson being sued. I'm just putting the results, which were filed just a couple of days ago. This is the civil court case information, case history for this case with Judge Michael Mandel and the plaintiff, Rob Sullivan, a customer of Nomad Capitalist, suing Nomad Capitalist and Andrew Henderson. This is directly from the Arizona website. Just a couple of days ago, that this stipulation for dismissal of action with prejudice was filed. Now, what that means is it's a stipulation to get rid of the case with prejudice. That means you can't bring any action. You settle this, it's gone, it's finished. If it were not with prejudice, then they could sue on the same issue, but this is going to settle everything. Now, you hear the word stipulation for dismissal. Well, yeah, you're obviously going to dismiss it. What does stipulation mean? Well, let's wind it back a little bit. I'm going to try not to make you sick by scrolling here too much. But going back to around November, a judgment was passed by the Supreme Court, which finally settled the effort that Andrew was trying to do to get himself untangled from this, and they weren't willing to do that. So the plaintiff, Rob Sullivan, still had standing. And I got a copy of that stipulation agreement. Now, this is from the Arizona Superior Court. This is the actual wording. It's not very long. Basically just Rob Sullivan and the defendants, together with Nomad Capital, they stipulate and agree that Nomad's motion for entry of judgment and application for attorney's fees and costs dated January 31st, 2025 be withdrawn. Proposed order for the stipulation is Exhibit 1. Okay, the stipulation, each party to bear its own attorney's fees and costs. Now, it sounds like they're stipulating to agree to this, and they're just not going to exchange any money, not going to pay each other's attorney fees, just drop it and go home. Well, no, that's not really what this means. This just means that the court is not going to hear any follow-on motions regarding attorney's fees and costs. So, yes, they're stipulating to settle this matter, stipulate and agree to dismissal with prejudice. They're getting it out of the court system. They're going to go off on their own. They're going to settle that however they settle it. And the court is saying, we're washing our hands of this. You will not bring this up to our court again, and you will not come back looking for attorney's fees, either one of you. Agreed? Good? Capiche? Got it. So that's it. It's been signed. It's been settled. It is out of the court system. Exhibit 1 is just a boilerplate copy of how that is. It is ordered however it's going to be filed. Probably hasn't been filed yet, but that will be officially filed and settled. So what does this all mean? The TLDR on this, the consumer fraud claim was the big one that could have resulted in actual damages, punitive damages, and attorney's fees if the plaintiff won at trial. So after the effort to get that dismissed failed at the Supreme Court in Arizona, that's when Henderson and his team had to seriously think about stipulating to settle this thing. So he tried to move the case, especially the consumer fraud claim, out of Arizona to Hong Kong, which is what it said in the forum selection clause. But the Court of Appeals, trial court, he lost. Court of Appeals, he lost. Unanimously at the Supreme Court, he lost. So that meant it could have set sort of a precedent. A full trial loss with a consumer fraud judgment could have invited more client complaints, which if you're here, you know all about the client complaints, negative publicity, regulatory scrutiny, and copycat suits. So he's already got enough negative information out there. At that point, you dismiss with prejudice, no judgment entered, no liability. The case is dead. From a reputation standpoint, that's better because now there's no precedent, as I mentioned. Now, what does that mean the plaintiff is going to walk away with? Now, he was down about $25,000 in one payment and another $27,500, I remember. So something like $52,000 some odd dollars at stake that he was trying to recover. At the low end, he would probably get that amount or a little bit less. But coming off with a Supreme Court victory in his favor and a consumer fraud claim, which is pretty strong in Arizona, he very likely would have won. And actual damages, punitive damages, attorney's fees, on top of everything else, they had to agree. And I'm sure he got at least the $50,000 back, plus the cost for the discovery, the cost for his time for the attorneys. He actually changed attorneys in January after the victory. So it wasn't like he wasn't happy with his initial attorney. He probably found an attorney that was a little bit better at trial or something. Don't know. But the plaintiff changed attorneys. He was ready to go. So they're settling. We don't know how much. I'm sure there's a confidentiality agreement. It's none of our business. The fact is they're settling, though, and they had enough feeling they would lose at trial. Nomad Capitalist, Henderson, and his attorneys, that they did agree. So you figure it wasn't something they wanted to do. This went on for a couple of years. So that's out of the way. It's done, right? Well, yeah. And a few hours ago, he published this video here, which if you look at the picture of the video, this is what it said. It's over. So, he's going to talk about the legal case, right? Well, no, he's not talking about the legal case. He's talking about Americans are fleeing for the first time in 100 years. It's sort of a generic, helpful information puff piece, but just check this out real quick.
Is the United States becoming a country that people leave? For more than a century, the story was pretty simple. People moved to the United States. They didn't leave it. My ancestors, the last of them, moved to the United States in the early 1900s from places like Norway and Lithuania, earlier from Wales and Scotland and other places. People just moved to the United States. Like that was the marketed place to go. But now something unusual is happening. Americans of all socioeconomic classes are moving abroad in numbers we haven't seen in literally generations. Not just one.
Okay, so this is a couple things here. First of all, I was wrong about him possibly using an Irish citizenship through descent. It sounds like if he came from all those places, he's not got an Irish relative, so that's not the citizenship he holds, at least not through descent. Don't know where he holds it. In another video, he talked about being qualified for an Egyptian citizenship, but he's not going to accept that one. Who knows? He's got a couple of passports that he's managed to finagle. Good for him. Why is he putting this video out? He's putting it out to sound helpful. He just talked about how Americans are leaving in record numbers, and it's not just the rich people. And hey, you can apply too. And also he didn't have the whole pompous "you can apply," or he's dropped that, which is good. He's coming across more natural. He's got a little background music. He's not trying to appeal to the multi-millionaires that he probably wasn't getting enough of. But that means you need to be a little bit more on your guard because nothing's really changed with the product. Let's take a look at the website though. He's done a few things. Of course, you can create your bespoke global citizenship plan. This is for high net worth clients. Presumably he's getting a lot of those. By the way, don't be fooled. We see BBC, Business Hour, all this down here. You can pay to have it put on your website. That doesn't mean that these people endorsed you or even talked about you. Don't know, but that's a marketing thing. So, okay, he's got his plan, and maybe people who pay for it are happy with it. The products, the Nomad Capitalist Action Plan. This is for clients with a pre-tax annual income of $500,000 and or a net worth of $1 million or more, starting from a retainer of $28,000. So it sounds like the overall plan of asking for that check, I guess it was $25,000 a few years ago. Now it's up to $28,000. But $1 million or more net worth, that's a lot of baby boomers in the U.S. You got a house you bought back in 1975 for $75,000. It might be worth $1 million or more. So they think, yeah, I'll sell my house and I'll just take my Social Security and I'll pay this guy $28,000. Help me get a passport. Don't just jump into that quite yet. But anyway, his business model is still preferably high net worth, but he's trying to appeal to everybody. And his sort of helpful everyman video, a little less pompous, is maybe indication of a shift in his consumer base. Of course, he's got the same event happening. This time it's November 4th through 7th of this year. You can book your seat now, mingle, be inspired and all that. What's it cost? Let's see. Whoa, $37.50 for a ticket, okay? Or $28,000 if you want the VIP one. Now VIP, at least you get a hotel room with that. But look, it's in Cancun, Mexico in November. That's not a really super expensive. I've been to Cancun. I know where this place is. It's a nice place, but it's not a $28,000, whiskey tastings and front row luxury box seating. Okay, whatever. But even then, $37.50, a lot of this information you can get on your own. But who is going to be here? I'll try not to make it sick as I scroll back up here. But let's take a look at some of the past people. I'm a little surprised to see Mark Mobius here. He was big back during the Great Financial Crunch. He used to be an American. Now he has Singaporean citizenship, I think. Wrote a couple of good books. I don't know. Maybe in his old age, he just wants to make some money on the speaker circuit. But he's not at this one. These are past speakers that you can see. And the one that really... Okay, George Gammon, a little disappointed to see him there, but who knows, the speaker circuit, the YouTube circuit. I'll show you something else about that in a minute. Watch this. Kiyosaki. Gotta be kidding me. If you see him anywhere, run. You're being had. This guy, the thing about Kiyosaki is the people who like him the most are the ones who are least happy with their financial lives. And the people who really made it didn't need Kiyosaki to help them do it. Now, pick your favorite tycoon businessman out there. How much time do you think he spends reading Kiyosaki's books or rubbing elbows with him or taking his... No, none. Kiyosaki is designed to appeal to the hopes of the ignorant. And I'm sorry if that comes off a little offensive. It's just unfortunately true. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He gives a lot of bad tax advice, no correct advice. Just Anyway, I'm not going to go on about that. You can read about him. This particular one, though, let's start from the bottom up. These are some of the guests. These are the staff, which we can talk about them a little later. Nomad Capitalist, these are just a few of the staff members. And you got some other entrepreneurs that are going to be there. Maybe they got something useful to say. I don't know. You got Universal Woman here. I'm not kidding. That's what it says. Universal Woman. All right. You got a few other investors and associates. There was something here. What did I see before? Last year I noticed there were a lot of YouTubers listed here. Cyrus Jansen, who I showed you in the first frame. Cyrus Jansen, geopolitical analyst and entrepreneur. Last time he was here, they showed him as a YouTuber. Okay, I guess they wanted to get away from the idea of showing YouTubers as guests. It maybe doesn't seem as prestigious. Doug Casey is back. She's back. Vicente Fox, former president of Mexico. I guess they had to pay him a pretty penny. He's here. Well, you got Miss Cosmo, Dominican Republic, and you got the former chancellor of the exchequer of the UK. All right, so they're paying a lot of money to have these speakers. If you want to spend $37.50 to go down there and listen to them, good on you. You don't have to do that to get a citizenship abroad. But, it is the number one event for global citizens. If that's you, go for it. The thing that you poke around its website, you can find some articles. This one kind of jumped out at me. Roger Ver, who is the founder, he's an early Bitcoin investor, and he was the founder of Bitcoin Cash. In the crypto community, they call it Bitcoin Trash because it is not a good token. It's been hugging the bottom forever. And moreover, Roger Ver recently got in trouble in Spain. I think he was picked up for tax evasion in the US after all those years. Is that really the kind of person you want to have on Nomad Capitalist website? I don't know. Maybe he'll take it down. But the leadership has changed. They used to list the entire staff, and now they just show the leadership team, which is fine. But they got rid of all the people that had like SEO and YouTube and the marketing side of it, because it was a little too obvious that they were spending a lot of time and money on marketing. Of course, he had to keep some of the young women around, but he's trimmed it down to try to make it seem a little more professional. He's also got a chief executive officer. He's not really running. He's the founder, I guess. So whatever. That's where your money's going to go. Is Nomad Capitalist still a scam? This person hasn't changed their website. It's still up there. You can judge for yourself. I don't know if you need to adjust the information on what they charge, but it broke down to 3 separate calls. And you get the first one, the strategy call, where you pay $500 to talk, and he trying to probes you to see how much money you got. You send him $8,500, and then I guess pricing your finances a little more, see how much they can milk you. A strategy call and talks through the plan, and then you talk to somebody else from that point on. I don't know about the $60,000 to $100,000. That's not what the plaintiff spent in the case, but conceivably that's how it was. Again, he may have changed his focus somewhat. I'm not convinced the product is really worth it. This is just my opinion, but judge for yourself. I hope this was helpful, and I hope this is the last time we have to see this show up in court. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Talk to you soon.